Yes, hello, how are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you doing? Good. My first question it relates with Donald Trump's morals and characters. Morals and character. Excuses are often made for him, but that has not been the case for most presidents, and I'd like to discuss that with you. Donald Trump has continuously shown low morals and poor character, and I understand that you are a pretty strong evangelical Christian. Is that correct? And I don't think Donald Trump exemplifies strong Christianity. So I'd like to know what you think about that.
So, great question. So are you a Christian? I just want to know by what standard you're judging him.
I personally am not a Christian.
Okay, so that's interesting to me. Why do you then care about what Christians think of Trump if you yourself are not a Christian?
Well, I believe Christianity still does play a great role in this country.
Fair enough. No, I just want to know by what standard you're judging him.
It started like a scene out of a movie. A confident college student steps up to the mic, staring down a packed room and challenging. It's a man who's made a career out of sparring with students, ready to take him on head first. His question's simple but loaded. How can Christians support a man like Donald Trump who clearly doesn't live by Christian morals? The student didn't stutter.
That's fine. So when we're selecting a leader, all of us are sinners. All of us have problems. His character flaws are definitely public for those that can see it. I will say, though, that he has a lot of virtues. Would you say he has any virtues?
What basis are you saying? What virtues do you think he
courage.
possesses? Okay, courage. I think.
Like if you and I got shot, how would we react?
Well, I don't know. I think that we're straying a little bit from the question.
No, it's important, though. So what moral failures in particular do you think are disqualifying from a Christian standpoint for him to serve in office or gain support from Christians?
Well, I actually do have some things pulled up, and I did read some scripture in preparation as well. Would you mind if I provided some of that?
Sure. Give me one or two examples.
Yeah.
And as long as you're applying the standard consistently, so, for example, King David, Samson, Daniel, Joseph, and many figures in the Bible who are considered to be virtuous and righteous, because we're all sinners, and you know that.
Sure.
But
yeah, absolutely.
Please give me some examples.
Yeah, well, I'd like to quote a couple pieces of scripture. First from, it says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, and to value others above yourself." But Trump has continuously put himself over American citizens.
Yeah, let me ask you a question on that. He's gotten poorer since he ran for office. He's lost his business empire. He's been impeached twice, indicted 4 times, facing 700 years in federal prison. How is that putting his own personal ambition first? He's facing life imprisonment, his business empire to be taken away from him. That's actually putting the country above himself, isn't it?
Well, yes, but what about him selling golden sneakers, selling branded Bibles, which he claims to be the only one he endorses, $100,000 watches?
So yeah, I mean, but selling products to try to pay for legal fees is probably understandable, right?
But
how much do you think he's spending in legal fees a month?
Isn't that telling that he's a 34-time convicted felon, though?
That's interesting. So do you think the standard of justice is equally applied of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton?
Well, no, but look what you guys said about
Hillary
Clinton.
Hold on. That's very important, though, because do you think that Donald Trump would be experiencing this kind of criminality against him if his name wasn't Trump?
Yes.
Really?
I do.
So then why is it that no one's ever been indicted for what he got convicted for ever before in New York history?
Isn't that a great question?
Yes.
Why hasn't he been indicted?
No. Why has no one else ever been indicted for what he was indicted for? They made up a crime, the first ever, for Donald Trump.
No. Why has no one else ever been indicted for what he was indicted for? They made up a crime first ever for Donald Trump. He laid it out with full confidence, accusing Trump of low moral standards, vanity, and hypocrisy, and then silence. The crowd waited. Charlie leaned in. What happened next? Flipped the room upside down. Instead of defending Trump right away, Charlie shot the question right back. "Are you a Christian?" The student paused. "No," he answered. That was the moment the energy shifted. Charlie locked in, eyes sharp. "Then why do you care how Christians view Trump?" The student, to his credit, held his ground, saying Christian values still shape the country. So, let me ask you, from a Christian perspective, we all fall short of the glory of God, correct?
So let me ask you, from a Christian perspective, we all fall short of the glory of God?
Correct.
Okay, amen. And throughout the Bible, people who are sinners, such as I mentioned King David, who did a lot worse things than Donald Trump, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the story of King David. He literally not only committed adultery, he got the person he committed adultery with, Bathsheba's husband, sent him to the front of the line, got him murdered and killed so that he continued to commit adultery. Yet he was a man after God's own heart. We have Samson, who literally, when God came upon Samson, he was in a bed with prostitutes and was in the Hall of Faith in the book of Hebrews. We are not electing Donald Trump as a pastor of this country. We're electing him as a president. And we also see what he does. And this is a very important moral question. Let's say I grant you that Donald Trump embodies some of the sins that you and I both don't like. Is it matter more of what he's done in his personal life? Or does it matter more, for example, when you invade a sovereign country like Iraq and commit war crimes against millions of people?
Well, Donald Trump has contrasted multiple Christian values, but I don't.
Well, hold on, this is important though. Have we ever heard the mainstream media or yourself come up and say, how could a Christian vote for George W. Bush? Have you ever heard that argument?
No, but...
Well, hold on. George W. Bush invaded a sovereign country under lies and pretenses, and thousands of American soldiers died, and hundreds of thousands have PTSD, and millions of people had their lives displaced. We never say that George W. Bush was a bad Christian, yet Donald Trump was the one that didn't declare any new wars. Blessed are the peacemakers. Donald Trump was the one that fought for the unborn and got abortion, Roe versus Wade repealed, and we have abortion laws across the country that are pro-life. The point is that it's easy to nitpick at Donald Trump's personal life, but what he actually did to impact the country was far greater than other presidents that called themselves Christians in years past.
But the damage was done. The trap had been satanned. He walked right into it. That moment wasn't just about religion or politics. It was about who gets to use what morals, and when it was the first domino in what turned into a brutal takedown filled with contradictions, receipts, and uncomfortable truths. By the way, before we continue, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and share more intriguing stories. Now,
it still doesn't quite make sense why a Christian would vote for him, but I appreciate your input. I guess I put that very vaguely. I don't understand how Christians are okay with so much that he does, because he also refuses to accept responsibility and take accountability.
Well, but because we read the Bible, and the Bible is full of people that have very, very difficult, let's just say, colorful lives, and still are used for God's purpose. And and by the way, it's very easy to say, are you a sinner? You're not a Christian, but let's just say,
yes, I've sinned.
Yeah, we're all sinners. And so we look at Donald Trump and we say, wow, this is a guy who's obviously broken. We're all broken. And what do you do with your broken life? Do you just golf all the time and fly around the world and hope things get better? Or do you get in the arena and fight for the country to the extent of where you get shot, you're under assassination attempts every day, and your business empire gets taken from you? That's incredible virtue that I'm going to teach my kids about and say, even if your back is against the wall, you keep on fighting. I think that's incredibly virtuous.
Okay. And I understand I'm not going to change your mind on this. So this is mostly...
You asked for an explanation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. So I respect that. Now, you mentioned children that you have and raising them by morals. I mean, this is somebody who's running for the president of the United States. And as a matter of fact, traditional Christian theologian and philosopher Albert Schweitzer said that example is not the main thing in influencing others. It is the only thing. Now, the words of the president matter. And I understand you're raising 2 children. So he has been on track calling prisoners of wars losers. He lied to dodge
the... never said that. Is not correct. That is a total lie, but that's fine. So,
yeah. lied to dodge the military.
That is also not correct, but fine.
Called citizens vermin.
Well, he called foreigners in the country that have broken into the country vermin.
Okay.
You know who he called vermin? He called the Venezuelan gang members that rape women vermin. Can we all agree that they're vermin?
Based.
Everybody? Yeah. But that's fine. Just keep going. Yeah, I mean...
And his continuous bullying and name-calling, I don't think that's a virtue you'd like to...
No, this is important. I want to say that, okay, let's pretend all that's right. Let's pretend that you weren't being fed misinformation. No, but I want to be clear. What is more virtuous? The guy that says stuff he shouldn't say, or the person that sends $200 billion on unnecessary war in Ukraine so 1 million people die? You have to choose. Which one would you rather have? Someone that talks sloppily or someone that funds wars around the world?
Okay, I was in the middle of my question.
No. It's important, though.
Your own, though.
No, it's important because I wanted to hear from you, though, because you obviously are not a supporter of Trump, and Trump is constantly under this attack that he's immoral and he's terrible, yet we never judge the actions of our leaders who continue to have wars around the world where people die. Is that immoral to do?
Charlie wasn't Donna, not even close, after cornering the student on his lack of Christian faith. He went straight for the weak spot in the argument. He asked a pointed question: by what standard are you judging Trump's morals? And that's when Charlie laid the groundwork for the next big reveal. See, he wasn't just defending Trump. He was flipping the entire conversation. He explained that people, especially those on the left, often use religion not because they believe in it, but as a weapon against those who do. They cherry-pick Christian values to shame believers into silence. Phrases like, aren't Christians supposed to forgive? Or, didn't Jesus say, don't judge? They get tossed out not to spark honest debate, but to trap religious people in their own beliefs. Charlie pointed out that this isn't new. It's a common move, especially when trying to corner public figures. But what made this moment different was that the student didn't seem hostile.
I agree. So then why are we so fixated on the language of Trump and not on the actions of our current leaders?
Well, first of all, our current leader, Biden, is not running for presidency this year.
Well, no, but the vice president is actually, and she's also in charge.
But not in charge the same way Joe Biden is currently.
Well, Joe Biden's certainly not in charge, so who's running the government?
Who is running? What's your answer to that?
I don't know. Like, we don't know who's running the government, actually, and it's horrifying. I mean, Kamala Harris went to the Munich Security Conference and provoked Vladimir Putin to invade Ukraine. She was in charge of the border. She was the border czar. The point is this, is that you can look through Donald Trump's language. People say he lies. He actually exaggerates, and those are two different things. But Donald Trump doesn't get in trouble for his exaggerations. He gets in trouble for telling the truth. And I'll give you an example. He gets in trouble for all of a sudden saying, oh, wow, the border's wide open. You're not allowed to say that. You seem super happy. Have a great day. Thank you. Gracious.
I love you, Charlie!
Thank you, guys. No, but I want to try to find some common ground here and try to see where you could... Well, I'm not going to make an excuse for everything a human being has done that it's not myself.
Sure.
But I will say that his track record of action has been very good for the country, and that is irrefutable.
Well, okay. May I finish?
In summary, yes, and then we'll get to another question.
Okay. So what I was going to say is, right now with Hurricane Helene and Milton, he is profusely lying and criticizing the Biden and Harris administration. But local officials...
How?
By saying he's siphoning money out for illegal immigrants.
No, that's totally true.
That's not true. FEMA said it's not true.
You guys could hold on a second. FEMA literally says in their press release that they had a fund dedicated towards the southern border being a natural disaster, and they spent billions of dollars accommodating foreigners in this country with luxury hotels and interior flights. You can look at it yourself. FEMA gets money appropriated, and they decided to spend that money on the southern border and not on hurricane relief or tornado relief.
He thought he was calling out hypocrisy, but instead revealed his own limited grasp of how faith and politics actually interact. Charlie didn't back down. Instead, he asked a follow-up: if we're judging character, are you judging all leaders equally, or just the ones you don't like? That question, simple but deadly, pushed the conversation into even deeper waters. And what came next was one of the most unexpected defenses of Trump you'll ever hear. Charlie didn't go for the usual defense. He didn't say Trump was flawless or misunderstood. Instead, he leaned right into the idea that, yes, Trump has moral flaws, just like every human being. Then he took it further, asking the student to name even one virtue Trump might have just won. The student hesitated and then said courage. That was the opening Charlie needed. He asked the student to imagine what he would do if he got shot, faced death threats, and had his entire business empire torn apart, because that's what Trump went through. He gave up a billionaire lifestyle to enter one of the most hostile political climates in American history. He lost deals, got impeached twice, indicted 4 times, and is now staring down hundreds of years in prison for what fame he already had. Money. He had more before he entered politics. Charlie pushed back hard on the idea that Trump's actions were selfish. Is risking everything to lead a country that hates you really selfish? He pointed out that the man is selling golden sneakers and Bibles, not to get rich, but to fund a legal defense against a system that's clearly out to bury him. The crowd went quiet because whether you loved or hated Trump, it was getting harder to deny there was a level of sacrifice there that didn't match the grifter narrative, and this was just the start. The conversation was about to explode. Now things were heating up. The student, trying to regain control, pulled out scripture, hoping to land a serious blow. He quoted verses about selfish ambition, about valuing others above yourself.
That's a fact. And by the way, I'm not alone in that. A lot of senators agree. You could look it up yourself. I don't know, but see that's not a lie though. But you're accusing him of being a liar when he's telling the truth. You just made my point.
No, but you keep interrupting me. You're not letting me finish anything.
Because you're not. First of all, this is not your hour. This is my hour. You're asking me questions, right?
Yes.
Secondly,
well, does that mean you get to respect me differently?
Well, I know I'm totally respecting you, but if you're saying something that's not true, I'm not going to waste our time on that. Make one final point. Okay, please, about Donald Trump's character.
Local government officials have commended the job that Biden and Harris have done in giving them the aid they need. But Trump, in his rallies, he is making up stories, and he is taking advantage of people when they are most vulnerable for political.
This is not true.
For political points.
Okay, why don't you go yourself to West North Carolina and tell me if it's going well? Okay? Tell me if it's going well, because it's not, actually. You could talk to local official after local official. I don't know where you're getting your information from, but please make one final point, and then we'll get to the next person.
Okay, yeah.
Let me ask you a hypothetical. You're not a Trump guy, right?
Correct, but I also know I'm not changing your mind.
No, but I want to try to find morally where you're coming from. Would you rather have a president who sleeps around, exaggerates, and sells merchandise for himself, but we have no World War III and a good economy?
I think that's an exaggeration, exaggeration.
Well, hold on, one second. Or would you rather have a president that speaks crisply, and we have World War III and a wide open border and a terrible economy? You have to choose. Which would you have?
Well, I know I don't have time to answer this, but I'd actually...
It's an A or B choice.
Well, no, but I'd love to talk to you about it, because I don't think the economy would be terrible under Harris and Walz. I don't. How's the
economy right now?
Okay, so that's something I would love to talk to you if I had more time.
No, really quick. Is the economy good or bad right now?
Okay, so right now, from 2020 with global supply chain shortages...
Okay, yeah.
Exactly.
This is the problem with college, is that they try to overly complicate the simple. Is the economy good or bad right now?
So...
Exactly.
So inflation right now?
It's horrible, actually.
Inflation right now is 2.4%, which is right on par with the other G7
Guys, can
economies.
you afford regular things that you want to afford? See, this is what I'm talking about, is that you got to get out of the clouds and listen to real people.
No, but that's...
80% of Americans say the economy is horrible. Why do they say that?
Well, so I mean, this is a nuanced answer. It would take nuance. And I want to ask you, what would Trump do to fix this economy? Because his tariff
exactly
plan would
what he did for 4 years. Because the economy was great when Trump was president.
Yes.
Drill, baby, drill, deregulate, cut taxes, empower entrepreneurs, and allow people to invest in America again. So when Trump was president, the economy was objectively better. People remember it as better because it was better. The question is this: why do people think the economy is so bad right now?
So, because in 2020, global supply chain shortages, and after COVID, demand shot up, which put upwards pressure on prices. It caused inflation. That's an excuse to price gouge. Right now, inflation is down, but there has not been a price correction. Now, Trump's tariff...
You seem like a nice, sweet person. You are so deceived. I got to get to the next question, which is that you did not answer the question. Most Americans think the economy is crummy. Most Americans think it was better under Trump. I'm going to trust the wisdom of everyday Americans, not the proven wrong academics that refuse to talk to real everyday people. So I'm not going to change your mind on it. Thank you for being here today.
No, I appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you for the call.
No, I appreciate your time. Thank you. Then he claimed Trump clearly didn't live by those standards. Was his gotcha moment? But Charlie didn't flinch. He leaned in and said, "Really? Then why is Trump poorer now than before he ran? Think about that the guy stepped into the White House and walked out with less money, not more. Lost partnerships, crushed branding deals, a whole empire threatened if Trump was chasing vanity. He chose the most self-destructive way to do it. Then came the real punch. Charlie asked, "Do you hold that same standard to other figures from the Bible?" King David committed adultery, then had a man killed to cover it up, Samson. Known for violent outbursts and laying with prostitutes, yet they were still used by God and remembered for their faith. The student tried to argue that Trump's sins were different. But he walked right into the comparison trap, because if those biblical leaders weren't disqualified from God's purpose, then why should Trump be disqualified from serving a country? Charlie ended the moment with a reminder: we're not electing a pastor. We're electing a president, and the question hanging in the air was sharp. What matters more, a man's past or his actions? While in power. The answer was about to get even more complicated. That's when Charlie took things even further. He stopped defending Trump's personal life altogether and shifted the focus to something much bigger: actions in office versus private behavior. And he hit the student with a question that cut deep: which is worse? Someone who sins privately, or someone who leads a nation into war under false pretenses? Then he named names: George W. Bush, the same man many now call a respectable Republican. The media never questioned his Christian faith, even after he sent thousands of Americans to die in Iraq and displaced millions more, entire families wiped out, veterans left with PTSD. But where was the outrage? Where were the moral lectures? Charlie made it clear Trump didn't start any new wars. In fact, he pushed for peace, and while the media screamed about Trump's tweets, they had nothing to say about past presidents who brought on real death and destruction. It was a brutal contrast, and it worked. Then he added another layer: Trump fought for pro-life policies. He backed the overturning of Roe v. Wade, whether you agreed or not. Those were actions rooted in values, concrete, measurable. So while critics nitpicked his language or a personal brand, Charlie argued Trump actually did more to protect life and avoid conflict than presidents who wore religion like a badge but left blood on their hands. It was a comparison that left the students scrambling and the audience stunned. The student tried to recover, but Charlie kept the pressure on. He brought fight back to the media. Why, he asked, does the press always praise past Republicans like Mitt Romney or George W. Bush now that they're no longer a threat? The answer was simple and brutal: because they played by the establishment's rules. Charlie made it clear that Trump didn't. That's why they hated him. Trump refused to start new wars, cut funding to the military-industrial complex, and rattled every corner of Washington that profits from endless conflict, while Boeing and Lockheed Martin watched their stocks climb during Bush's wars. Trump's presidency didn't feed that machine that made him dangerous. And yet, despite the chaos he fought for, things like American manufacturing, border security, and protecting the unborn, the establishment didn't care about morals. They cared about control. Trump broke their systems. That's why they came for him with everything they had. Charlie wasn't sugarcoating anything. He admitted Trump could be brash, rude, even reckless with words, but then asked the question that shut the room down: would you rather have a man who says things you don't like, or a man who sends your friends to die in pointless wars? The crowd knew exactly what he meant. One man hurt feelings, the other destroyed lives, and in that moment, the students' argument about morality started to unravel. Still holding on, the student tried again. He brought up Trump's refusal to accept responsibility, his name-calling, and that infamous line about prisoners of war being losers. He even accused Trump of dodging the military draft, but Charlie was ready. He called out the claims flatly, stating some were lies, others distortions, and all of them repeated endlessly by a media machine with an agenda. Then Charlie zeroed in on the word that made headlines: vermin. The student claimed Trump was calling American citizens that, but Charlie shut that down fast, explaining Trump was talking about Venezuelan gang members crossing the border illegally, raping women, and terrorizing communities. Can we agree that those people are vermin? He asked. The room was dead quiet because suddenly that line didn't seem so outrageous. Then came the real test. Charlie asked the student to choose: which is worse, harsh words or endless war? Would you rather have a president who offends people on Twitter, or one who quietly funds World War III behind closed doors? The student tried to continue, but he was losing ground fast every time he brought up Trump's rhetoric. Charlie countered with results. It was no longer a debate about personality, it was a debate about consequences, and every time the scale tilted back toward Trump, because in the end, you can survive mean tweets. You don't survive missiles. The student tried pivoting again, this time toward the current administration. He claimed Trump was obsessed with blaming Biden and Harris for everything, even during natural disasters like Hurricane Idalia. He accused Trump of lying to desperate people just to score political points. Charlie didn't let it slide, he hit back. With receipts, Trump had accused FEMA of redirecting disaster relief money to support illegal immigrants, and the student fired back. That's false. FEMA said it's not true, but Charlie wasn't having it. So now you believe everything a government agency says, he asked, pointing to the long list of times. The FBI, CIA, and others had been caught lying. The message was clear: just because a press release says something doesn't make it gospel. He added that FEMA did in fact designate billions for border-related aid, including putting illegal immigrants in luxury hotels and flying them to cities across the country. That money, he argued, could have gone to hurricane recovery, and if you ask the local people suffering after the storm, they wouldn't say FEMA was doing a great job. It wasn't just about facts. It was about who you trust. The student trusted headlines, Charlie trusted lived reality, and he made sure the audience saw the difference. One side relied on clean-cut government talking points. The other pointed to broken communities, missing aid, and people left behind. That kind of contrast couldn't be spun away. Then came the knockout round. Charlie posed a blunt, unforgiving hypothetical. Would you rather have a president who sleeps around, exaggerates, and sells merch, but keeps the country out of war and the economy strong, or one who speaks perfectly but leads us into World War III, opens the borders, and tanks the economy? There was no room to wiggle out. It was A or B. Harsh personality with peace and prosperity, or smooth talk with chaos. The student dodged. He tried to argue that things wouldn't be so bad under someone like Kamala Harris, that the economy was complicated, that inflation wasn't really Biden's fault. But Charlie didn't let up. He pressed, is the economy good or bad? Can you afford basic things? Can average Americans? And that's when it hit. The student admitted inflation had come down, but Charlie cut in, yeah, but prices haven't. Regular people can't afford groceries, so what's the point of lower inflation if you still can't live? He accused the academic world of trying to overcomplicate simple truths, that economists and students could spin charts all day, but regular families felt the damage. Every time they walked into a store, Charlie reminded the room that under Trump jobs were growing, taxes were lower, energy was booming, people remembered how they lived, and they remembered it was better. The student tried to push back with global supply chain excuses and tariff talk, but it was too late. The crowd knew what their wallets told them, and no classroom theory could argue with that. Before the final exchange, things got even more intense, because Charlie wasn't just debating a student anymore. He was calling out the entire system. The universities, the media, the political elites, the bureaucrats in Washington. He looked the student dead in the eye and asked, you ever wonder who's actually running the country right now? The student didn't have an answer. He hesitated, then admitted, I don't know. And that's when Charlie pounced. Exactly. Neither do we, and that's terrifying. Charlie began connecting the dots, pointing out that Joe Biden clearly isn't in charge.